Hello and welcome back to the Legacy Premier League. I am here with Autumn Burchett.
Hey, it's nice to join you here.
And I am Michael Bonde. I just had to turn off my sound on my own Twitch. So, Autumn, you have been playing the MPL split. You have playing the Mythic Championship. You're gonna play the Players Tour. You have a lot of things going on, and still you have time for this. So I'm happy that you're here. And we have some Twitter poll results. So let's take a look at that before we go on to the next part.
Awesome.
So, wow. Autumn, yeah, do you think that this is how it's going to be?
So I do actually generally think that the Delver side is pretty good in this matchup. And it seems like Jarvis is quite well prepared. So I actually think this could be reasonably representative, but of course, if anyone can win this matchup, it is Eric.
Yeah, Eric is on Black-Red Reanimator, and Jarvis is on a classic Delver deck.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have a little bit experience with Reanimator, but I know that you have a lot of experience with Grixis and Delver variants. So before we go to the Delver variants, should we take a look at Eric's deck?
Sure, that seems great. So this is Reanimator. So we're looking to get a big, bulky creature in the yard, preferably Grizzlebrand, and then bring it back into play. Of course, the Legacy version of Reanimator is very high on this turn 1 disruption to try and get really fast reanimations going. We've got some discard spells and also Chancellor of the Annex, which is very rude against Force of Will.
Yeah, so this deck is, as you're saying, just a big creature in the graveyard that does something extreme, and then just a lot of discard outlets. The fun thing about this deck is that you often discard yourself to actually get cards into the graveyard. So there are a both-way ticket here. That's kind of unusual.
Yeah.
And Eric here has a pretty sweet split with the 2/2/2/2 in a world where Sorcerer's Spyglass and Pithing Needles are a thing. So that's pretty neat.
Prepared. Of course, we see the creature base, Grizelk brand, Chancellor of the Annex, etc.
Yeah. And then Eric is one of the pioneers with this deck, and really, he had 50 trophies or something in one season.
Oh, so, he's just one of the best of this deck.
Yeah, but and multiple decks actually. He always brings these weird decks to the. But this isn't that weird. It's a streamlined 4/4 deck that just preys upon people who stumble or are not prepared.
It also preys upon people who don't respect it enough as well.
Yeah,
you go to those post-board games and you're not willing to mulligan your Force of Will, and suddenly they get you.
And actually, I had to look up one of the Sideboard cards in Coffin Purge. That was a nice card. I hadn't seen that for a while.
Is that the flashback exile card from the yard?
Okay, Master. Yes, it is.
Nice thing to entomb for in the mirror.
Yeah. Nice. And then he has a pesky little Magus of the Moon, which might come in handy in this matchup. Who knows? But let's talk about Jarvis's Delver deck.
Yeah, we've got a good old Teamer Delver deck. Of course, very different from what we think of as the classic Delver decks. These Teamer Delver decks now are a bit more mid-rangey, with cards like Renin 6 and Oko. They can play that longer game, which is not so relevant in this matchup. Cards like Renin 6 are going to be pretty poorly positioned against Reanimator.
Yep.
But you've still just got the good Delver game plan of get an early threat on the board and have your counter magic up to disrupt their game plan.
And this is a classic, if not lands, then a classic Jarvis U deck. A really good deck that has some disruption, that has some tempo, and just plays to a person's strengths if the person is good at Legacy.
There's a really sweet one in this list too that people have only started trying out in Delver last week. Elvish Reclaimer.
Yeah.
Which is going to be very nice in the post-board games with the Spajuka bug.
Yeah. And if we take a look at the sideboard here, Jarvis has really like he knew that he was playing against Eric. Eric is
Mm-hmm.
really good against with like these reanimation decks. So we see a crop rotation, Caracas, Bujukabok, as you just mentioned, and Grafdigger's cages. So there's a lot of different cards to deal with. Almost a Gabriel Nassif sideboard with one-offs.
The other thing is Jarvis clearly respecting this matchup too in the main deck with that second Force of Negation.
Yeah, that is true.
Having that 6/0 mana counter, most people only have the one Force of Negation in their main deck.
So Jarvis came prepared. He analyzed the matchup, and I think we're ready to go. And Jarvis is on the play.
Awesome.
Yeah, so let's go, Autumn, and welcome to the battlefield.
So we have the turn 0 Chancellor here. So Jarvis's disruption, he has a Daze at the ready and an early threat. If you look at Eric's hand, he has discard spell and Tomb, but doesn't have the reanimation yet. So I guess he's really leaning on drawing into it and using this hand disruption to just buy time and set up any reanimation spell he draws into.
Yeah, and the Chancellor of the Annex is a card that you can show at the beginning of your the game, and then the first spell will get countered unless you pay one extra. So we see Jarvis just sucking it up and casting the Ponder into a counter here.
Yeah, Eric's gonna fire off a therapy. Yeah, he ends up naming Force of Will, even though he doesn't have the combo yet, because he recognizes that going long Force of Will is going to be the problematic card, and also resolving this Entomb is just so important. Once you have your Grizzlebrand in the yard, suddenly you have all these reanimation spells in your deck that are live draws, whereas doing it the other way around is kind of awkward if you get your Entomb countered. You only have 4 Entombs in your deck. It's just that much harder to draw into your next one.
Yeah, and if we see the draw here from Jarvis was a was a Wasteland and a Daze, but the Daze number 2 is really what's it called? It's gonna stifle Eric's plans here because Eric has drawn up that he can play the Scrubland and then just fire off the Exhume here, but a double Daze will probably take away the Lotus Petal and then counter the card on the second try.
There can't Daze twice though, right?
Yeah, he can because he only has so the Daze was actually
such a nightmare.
Yeah, then the Wasteland was pretty annoying. I didn't see that.
Yeah,
and
so this is actually really bad. I assume Jarvis has just lost from this position.
Yeah, I would say really bad is an understatement of. It's probably even worse than that.
Even if he'd drawn the second island land, he would still have been in a rough position because Eric would have had the follow-up.
Yeah.
Reanimation spell for the next turn too.
But... Yeah, and Jarvis would only have had 1 land. So that was a super quick game, taken down by Eric. And now the more interesting games in the sideboard is going to happen. So
yes. So Jarvis is going to get access to more disruption in the form of Grafdigger's Cage, but Eric has the chance to pivot a little with a card like Magus of the Moon, catch Jarvis off guard. Yeah.
So you're talking about Renin 6 being kind of poor in the matchup. Can you try and elaborate why he probably will take them out?
So Wasteland is not great in the matchup, so recurring your Wastelands isn't amazing, and card advantage doesn't matter too much. It can matter in the sense that you mulligan a lot, and Renin 6 helps you recover from mulligans, but really, as long as you're surviving those early couple turns and you have a threat, having all that card advantage that Ren provides is just not that important. So it's just a very slow card in the matchup as a result. We even see Jarvis boarding out some Wastelands here, recognizing that this is a card that often doesn't have targets here.
Yeah, so it seems like what you just said is pretty much the same thought process that Jarvis has. So one Delver player to another, you're like in sync here with the sideboard strategies. That's pretty neat.
Then Eric's side, we just see a Magus and a Swarm come in and a Shenanigans.
Yeah.
So
The shenanigans, why do you think he's boarding that one in?
basically just for Graph Digger's Cage, right?
Yeah,
Graph
okay,
Digger's
so
Cage is such a beating.
yeah.
And the fact that you can entomb for shenanigans and then dredge it back is really powerful against Cage. It means that it means that suddenly instead of having one answer in your deck to Cage, you have 5.
Yeah.
Because you can tutor for it in that manner.
It's a nice little interaction with the dredge 1 mechanic. So we're back at the battlefield, and we have Jarvis on the play because he lost. Eric is up 1-0. And it seems like Eric has a kind of bad hand. It's probably going to mulligan if there's not a land there. And what do we see from Jarvis's side?
Jarvis's hand is nice, provided Eric doesn't have the turn 1. But if Eric has the turn 1, then this hand is just going to die. He doesn't have a Force of Will. He doesn't have a Fortification. The Cage is a really big payoff for surviving that first turn. But definitely, this is a scary hand to keep.
Yeah.
We see Eric mulligan.
Yeah.
Mulligans again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard with the 7/10s. There's a person in the sideboard, Not So Silent Bob, that asked why does Jarvis keep in the bolts in the matchup?
So main reason is Jarvis has seen Eric's sideboard. Jarvis knows there's a Magus of the Moon and a Xantid Swarm coming in, and that both those cards are really problematic if they resolve and you don't have those bolts. And you have enough bad cards in the matchup with your Ren and 6s and your Wastelands that you already have enough stuff to board out. You don't need to take out these bolts. Worst case scenario, this bolt is still a time walk when you're killing your opponent with your deltas. So
yeah, I completely agree. And especially like sometimes you keep in some pretty bad cards because you simply just don't have enough cards to board out. Like he boarded out 2 Wastelands, 3 Ren and 6, and some other cards, and eventually you run out of cards to board out. So it's just a lesser evil that does it. But Lightning Bolt is pretty good in a Magus of the Moon match if it will come down to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I agree on your assessment there. So let's see. It looks like even though there was a double mulligan from Eric, it seems like he has. It's not a good hand when there's a Graph Diggers on the board, but it's also not a bad hand from a mulligan to 5.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah. Okay.
He's going to have a bunch of mana sources in hand. He's managed to discard this Grizzlebrand, but both needs to find a reanimation spell and also needs to find either shenanigans or a way to tutor it up to get this Cage off the battlefield.
Yeah, I probably should have waited until he had resolved the Fatal Saluting. It could have gone all ways. On the other hand, I think Jarvis is having a pretty nice turn of events here with both the Tarmogoyf, Flip Delver, and Wasteland.
We see Jarvis casting this Ponder, really valuing trying to find a counter spell to protect the Graph Digger's Cage.
Yeah.
He finds it as well, which is great.
Yeah.
Ooh. This might be a bit too slow, but if there's anything that gets Eric back in the game, it's top decking that shenanigans. It gets this either gets this forcible out of Jarvis's hand or forces gets this Cage off the board so that your reanimation spells are alive.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting what Jarvis is going to do here.
Yeah. So if he forces this, Eric is guaranteed to draw another shenanigans next turn. Whereas if he doesn't force this and Eric has a reanimation spell, Eric is not guaranteed to draw another reanimation spell next turn.
Yeah.
So it's actually really good disciplined play from Jarvis there, not countering it. Obviously, you want to keep your absurd hate card in play, but he recognizes it's actually just better to have this counter spell in hand.
Yeah. Especially with so much pressure on the board, since it's the Goyf is 4, so it's 7 damage. So it's actually a kill if it gets to Jarvis again.
Yeah, it's looking bad for Eric right now.
So I think it looks like he's probably just gonna slam the Magus and hope that it's enough. But little does he know with about the days and the Force of Will here.
Yeah, even the lightning bolt. Make sure that Eric dies next turn too.
Yeah, yes. So I agree. I agree that you're about the whole that it's hard to actually like evaluate should I counter, should I not counter, and I think the most people defaults into like protecting the hate card here, but
yeah.
I think it's beautiful from Jarvis' side to just restrain himself and just it's not gonna he's not gonna win if I keep up the Force of Will.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was like really good play.
Yeah, I actually just tried to mirror what you said, so I'm agreeing with you.
Fires off a Faithless Looting. I know Faithless Looting is, very powerful card banned in Modern, but I don't think it's going to get there this time.
Nah. Some Faithless Looting also has a downside. And it is that it's 3 mana of flashback, and if you don't have that many sources, you're just dead on board. You're not dead on board, you're dead with us knowing what is in Jarvis's hand.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, Puck, whatever, that the matches that have been played are Delver against Delver, and it looks like we're going to game 3 in this Black-Red Reanimator versus Rock Delver. Eric is up 1-0 against Jarvis, but I think Jarvis is gonna fire off something here and just kill Eric. He's really slow rolling that lightning bolt. He's trolling him, I think.
If you had to think of like a way that this matchup goes, this is how you'd think of it, right? Delver struggles. That game 1 maybe doesn't have enough interaction. Game 2 on the play is really able to punish the opponent with a strong curve out of Heat card plus Delver, and then we get that game 3 with Reanimator on the play, where Reanimator gets to ask the question of, do you have it?
Yeah.
On turn 1.
A nice thing that the chat is saying here is Eric doesn't know that Jarvis kept in the lightning bolt. So not showing the lightning bolt there is kind of nice because it's 4 cards in the main deck maybe. So there is it wasn't a slow roll. It was actually strategic. I was trying to be funny, but it backfired, making me look an idiot.
It's a really excellent point. Just one of those scenarios where you can't lose anyway, so why give out extra information that could influence how your opponent plays or sideboards?
Yeah.
Like, I have to imagine, I don't know, if you're Eric and you know Jarvis is keeping in all 4 bolts, do you still want Magus of the Moon and Sanded Swarm?
I don't know. I find it hard to, like, all these random combo decks and reanimation decks. I always find it hard to know exactly what to board out and board in because it's such a great machine at what it's doing. Yeah. So boarding out too many pieces is always hard. So I don't know about the Magus of the Moon, but with Eric not knowing about the lightning bolts as of now, I would still keep in the Magus of the Moon because they could just snipe a game.
That makes sense. So we see an Entomb opener from Eric, which is always nice.
Yes, and we have a little bit of miscommunication with Eric's hand here, but I think is it an Annex?
Yes. I believe that is the case. Whoa. Did that get mulliganed?
Yeah, I think he mulliganed on 5. We have like a anorak in our ear here saying that Eric is on 5. And it seems like a pretty good hand with a mulligan to 5.
All right, now on 4.
Now on 4, yeah.
All right, cool.
Lucky Jarvis. This is one of the downsides playing, I would call it a glass cannon, but it's not as glass cannon as a deck like Belcher, but it is like very linear, and it's kind of trying to do the same thing, and if it doesn't, it's gonna get steamrolled, so... This is what happens sometimes, if I can speak for my tongue.
This is what happens when you don't register Brainstorm.
Yes, that is also maybe true, I wouldn't know.
Heads up play from Eric here. Lots of people would miss this. He upkeeped the Entomb to play around Force of Negation. That's like a really new play pattern in Legacy. It's something I messed up recently. In Legacy, I like petty thefted my opponent's thing on my turn and got blown out by Force of Negation. You really have to be aware of that card and how it affects timing nowadays.
Yeah. And look at this beautiful play. Like, I know that when we look at it, like hindsight and everything, it's just, yeah, of course you would do that. But Jarvis actually firing off a Brainstorm to get countered by the Annex and then dazing afterwards, with only thinking about it for a couple of seconds after Eric just upkeeped his Entomb. I think that it was very beautiful from Jarvis here.
Right, now we have the Elf online. So there is a bog in the future, I believe.
And people are actually saying that he could just have floated mana for the days, and that is, of course, true as well.
Yeah, I was wondering about that when you were saying that. I wasn't sure if I missed something. All right, the bug comes in, so it's basically countered all the progress that the Entomb gave, right? It puts Eric in a position where not only does he have to squeak a reanimation spell through a counter spell, he also has to find another enabler or find a red source for this Faithless Looting.
Yeah.
So Reclaim are doing a lot of work here, getting rid of the graveyard, and now it's just going to be a solid beatdown body, right? Gets to attack for free. It's very powerful.
Yeah, so there's a Reclaimer and there's a Tarmogoyf on the battlefield, probably a Delver in a second or two, and then Volcanic Island for a Bolt. So it's gonna... this is gonna like turn really quickly. If there was an advantage bar, it would be all over Jarvis's field here. It's not looking good for Eric. So as fast as the first game was in Eric's favor, game 2 and 3, even though determined by mulligans, Jarvis had like some pretty good hands, even if Eric had not mulliganed, I would assume.
This is interesting. Jarvis is actually leaving open the Elvish Reclaimer because he really values, I'm assuming, getting Caracas.
Yeah.
Just to shut down a lot of the big scary threats and make sure they're off the battlefield.
Yeah, I would imagine that he probably did some calculations, but with the day's play, no one knows. But maybe it's a 2-turn clock, even though it stays at home.
Someone in chat says maybe Jarvis is just flexing.
Yeah,
Who needs to brainstorm?
Yeah, a very new way of doing. I still had all these on turn 1. So let's see. Yeah, so the Caracas, as you said, entered the battlefield, and I would imagine that he's attacking here, and he is, yeah.
And there's Goyf in play, a Bolt in hand. It's really hard for Eric to not die next turn. Like, even if he gets a Grizzlebrand in play for that important lifelink, there's a Caracas at the ready. So even that won't be enough. A Chancellor blocking isn't enough either.
No, it's really like he is in a rough spot here. With another Tarmogoyf as well. And I think the Scrubland is there for a Serenity in the sideboard. Someone is asking about that. So let's see what Eric is saying here. If he's saying Lightning Bolt is pretty nice, since he hasn't seen it, but I don't know. Yeah, so he's just abandoning hope. I probably think that he said that. So that was the match. It was a pretty good match, even though it was fast, and it kind of did what Delver did, and then it did what the Black-Red Reanimator did.
Nice win for Jarvis there. I'd say when my experience playing Delver, that's how the matchup often goes.
Okay.
You struggle in that game 1 sometimes, but that extra disruption post-board is enough to pull you through.
Yeah, so if you were thinking about playing Delver in a field of a lot of Black-Red Reanimator, listen to Autumn and watch Jarvis, or watch Autumn as well. Like, it is not as bad as a matchup as it might seem on the paper, if it even seems bad on the paper. But, Autumn, we have one more thing before we rest for one match before we battle it out in round 4. And it is a, let's see, I don't know what it is. It's a raffle. It's a raffle from one of our sponsors from Card Hoarder. So we have 6 dragon dice, and as soon as they say go, I think Anorak is gonna say go. You should type Card Hoarder in chat, and then you're in the role of becoming America's next top model, or at least trying to win 6 dragon dice.
These dragon dice are actually kind of nice.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you want to have 6 dice, these are definitely the dice that you want. So I think Autumn, we will battle out later, and we'll see each other next week for the Players Tour. And
I'm
until
excited.
then, I'm extremely excited as well. I hope we both break it and play in the top 8 again. You can win as long as I just top 8 again. You can win even if I don't top 8. So see you later on the battlefield, and I think that's all for us, Autumn.
Yeah, what's the next match we have coming up it is Emma versus Bryant, if I'm not mistaken.
And there was a joke that me and Eric were not playing Delver, so I would imagine they're probably playing Delver without
good old Delver mirror.
Yeah.
Hoping Emma crushes this one. No commentator bias here, but
yeah, no, Emma is playing accumulative knowledge. So she's playing a blue-white red mentor deck against Bryant, who's playing Delver. So okay, so the joke is that it's Delver against something that's not Delver in all the brackets. That's pretty neat, except Javier and Mengucci.
We don't have a Delver deck in our part of the bracket, right? I'm pretty sure I didn't register a Delver deck.
No, yeah, you're playing 4CC. That's true. I just chucked them out. Blue decks, Delver deck. It's the same. Okay, so that's all for us. Thank you very much for doing commentary with me, Autumn. It was a pleasure.
It's been fun.
And let's see some legacy games.
Hey guys, it's just Anurag chiming in here. Alex Kid in Miracle World, congratulations on winning your 6 dice. Reach out to It's Julian on Twitch. He's gonna give you the information. And with that, we're gonna be right back. I'll see you guys in just a second.